Hey guys, want to talk quickly about riding efficiency and more specifically riding with momentum. So this appears in the session detail within the programs at Jet Coaching. So I want to talk about what it means, what the value of it is, and how it fits in with how you manage and execute any given training session, especially when we are talking about riding with momentum, but also then how that flows into race day and ultimately making you a better athlete, a better cyclist, and a better triathlete. So ultimately, what we're doing when we're riding with momentum is we're talking about increasing efficiency. Now, I'm big on efficiency. I think that's basically your number one indicator of high performance in relative terms for an endurance sport. So then when you talk about race day and trying to get from A to B as efficiently and as quickly as possible, any skill or habit or practice that we can put into play that increases our efficiency is going to be a good thing. So there's obviously physiological factors and markers and levels and measures of fitness that can increase our efficiency. So from that point of view, but there's also skills and habits and equipment choices and even a mindset that can maximize an efficiency. And riding with momentum is one of those. So the best cue I've come up with is thinking about tension on the chain. So we're talking about riding our bikes now and ultimately riding our bikes outdoors more so than indoors because we race outdoors. You can practice riding with momentum and in particular the cue of tension on the chain on the trainer. But when we really get into the nuts and bolts of riding with momentum, it's best practiced, and you're going to see the effect of it more so when you're outdoors riding on mixed terrain, mixed conditions, out on the road, and you're feeling the road, feeling the bike, and talking about handling a bike and the skill involved in doing so. So if you think about that tension on the chain, so what does that mean? So basically at all times, regardless of how hard you're going, how easy you're going, whether you're going up, down, you're on the flat, it's windy, the wind's coming from behind or in front, we're talking about maintaining tension on the chain. So gear selection, awareness, and execution of cadence to maintain tension on the chain. So think about that probably as the biggest thing, and then how that applies to different terrains and riding conditions, as I mentioned. So we're talking about letting it flow. So it's managing the flow, and as I said before, the efficiency of riding by maintaining tension on the chain, which allows us to ride with momentum. So that's how it all fits together. So it can be practiced like any skill. It can be practiced in training, and it can be improved that way. So regardless of how hard you're riding, so what intensity you're riding at, or whether it's an interval-based ride or a steady endurance-based ride, you can practice riding with momentum. And as mentioned, you can practice the concept indoors or outdoors, but it's best done outdoors. But it's also something that can be utilized by any level of athlete. So whether we're talking about a 6-hour Ironman split, a 4.5-hour Ironman split, or somewhere in between, or even longer, anyone of any level can practice riding with momentum, and it's going to improve your cycling ability and ultimately your ability as an athlete. And then if we put that into context of be your best motto and mentality come race day, and then what we're trying to do then is maximize our performance outcomes given our levels of fitness, our levels of conditioning, the environmental conditions, the type of course, all of those things. That's where be your best comes. This fits in with that perfectly. So anyone can utilize it at any given level of fitness, regardless of where you are in your journey. And it will improve your ability to ride the bike and your efficiency and your ability to put forward a really well executed bike split come race day. But also again, maximizing that efficiency and setting yourselves up for a good run. So ultimately what it requires is awareness and engagement of what you're doing. So it's understanding the concept of momentum and how that fits in with the cue of tension on the chain, and therefore increasing your flow and momentum whilst you're out riding on the road, which increases efficiency. But that requires, moment to moment. It requires you to be aware of what you're doing, engaged and concentrating. So like any skill or anything you're doing, if you can be fully engaged and aware of what you're doing, you're going to increase your performance. So some practical examples are, if you're riding along and there's a rise in the road, it's how you then manage the gear ratio. So changing up or down in the gears. So if you're coming up to a rise, you might be going along at a nice, efficient pedal stroke, good cadence, keeping it smooth. You've got that tension on the chain, but you notice that you're coming to a small rise for a couple of 100 meters. So you might work up through the gears initially, and actually maybe put a little bit more force through the pedals to help maintain that momentum, knowing that in about 20 or 30 seconds time, naturally your bike is going to slow down, and potentially the cadence is too. So, increasing the tension on the chain initially, pedaling into the base of that hill, and then as the hill starts to take effect on your speed, you want to try and maintain momentum. So that's the difference. You're not necessarily trying to maintain the speed up and down and having a flat line of speed, power, heart rate throughout an entire bike ride, but you're trying to keep that momentum going. So you're trying to keep that flow of the riding going and that rhythm that you have. So then you work back through the gears, but making sure you don't just sit up and spin. You've got to maintain some tension. And on that note, making sure that you're not adding gears or just being, I guess, pig-headed about it and maintaining the gear ratio and just going into a real grind and mashing up the hill. So using the gears, thinking about what you're doing, letting the cadence drop naturally, but keeping it smooth and not getting too much of a spike in your power or heart rate. And then maintain that momentum and that tension and that rhythm of riding, keeping it nice and smooth. And then as you come towards the crest of the rise, again, you might increase the effort just a little for a short period of time to get back on top of the momentum, in anticipation that it's either going to flatten out or you're going to go down the other side of the incline. And then you want to start working through the gears again, and again coming back to that cue of maintaining tension on the chain. So ultimately what that means is you're not letting yourself free will or soft pedal down the other side, or as it flattens back out, you want to maintain your awareness, maintain your engagement and concentration by working through the gears, managing your effort, your intensity and your cadence, keeping the tension on the chain, all in the name of efficiency. And then you get back on top of that and back into your smooth rhythm down the other side and back into the flat. So that's a practical example. As I said, this is a skill that can be practiced. It's often best practiced solo, because riding in the group, that has different dynamics once again. But anyone can practice this. It starts with understanding what we mean by momentum and what the flow-on benefits of that is. And then a few really simple cues as to how we practically work on managing that tension on the chain to increase our efficiency, and it can be done for any given level on any type of bike ride, and then 100% it can be applied on race day to improve your efficiency, and generally speaking that will mean speed at any given effort come race day as well. So any questions on this topic, feel free to ask below or contact me directly. You will keep seeing this word. Now hopefully you've got some context as to what it means and how that can be practically applied in both training and racing. Hope it helps. Cheers and happy riding.